How do you actually release trauma from your body? And why does it feel like when you start to try to heal and release the trauma, you get worse? Stay tuned. I'm going to talk about that a little bit today and give you some insight from the spiritual perspective of what is really going on when you start to release trauma from your body. Welcome to the Soul Alignment Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Angie, and I'm inviting you to explore the depths of self-sabotage, limiting mindsets, and the beliefs that hinder our progress in life. Through intuitive messages I receive from my spirit team, I share profound insights to help you live authentically and break free from these limitations. Join me now as we uncover all the keys to living your best life. Welcome back. My name's Angie, and I am your Soul Alignment Mentor, bringing you intuitive messages from my spirit team to help you align with your most authentic and highest self. So as I have been on this journey of awakening and healing and aligning with my most authentic self, I have been through much healing on my own. And I will say, without the people and the healers that have come into my life throughout the last several 6 to 10 years, I probably would not be where I am today. And I remember being at a place where I was so confused and unsure of what it really took to heal. And it's interesting that I felt that because the reality of it is I was a mental health professional. I met with clients every single day for over 18 years. I actually worked in the mental health field for 20 years and was supporting kids and teens and adults in their mental health. As a mental health caseworker and a support person in the community for many of these families, I would go into the home and I would support them, or they would come to me and we would have meetings. In some settings, I worked in impatient and I would provide therapy almost. And so the work that I did in the mental health field and the education that I received from going to college and taking courses and going to trainings, all of that was what I was using when I was trying to help other people to heal. The whole time I was doing this, I had no idea that I had not healed myself. And so much of the pain that I was holding in my body, I was just ignoring it and then going to help other people because in some way I thought maybe I would heal by helping others. I didn't realize I was doing that, and I was not conscious of that decision at the time. But as I continued to work in the field, I started to recognize that when a client would come to me with trauma or a situation or something they'd been through, I would read the case and I would sit there and my body would have a reaction. And at the time, I did not realize that was a trigger. When I started working in the mental health field, it was still in the 90s. So mental health was not as seen or kind of out in the public as it is now. It was very taboo when I started working in this field, but I always knew I wanted to help people in some way. And I'm sure my own trauma was what kind of led me towards that. However, when I was a child, I've always known that I wanted to be a healer, a support for others, a teacher, a guide in some way for humanity. I think it was just part of my highest calling and why I came to Earth, to support humans in aligning and healing and knowing who they are in their most highest, most powerful, authentic self. And so as I was working in the mental health field and I started to realize I have the same problems I'm trying to help my clients with, I decided probably in 2016, after I had my major awakening, that it was time. It was time to face the pain in my body. It was time to face the situations that kept popping up in my life. It was time to face how I felt about myself. And I do admit in the beginning, when I first started on this healing journey, I wanted to make things around me feel better for the sake of having better relationships and better friendships and better experiences with those around me. I was tired of feeling like I wasn't good enough. I was tired of not being able to keep friends. I was tired of not feeling like I ever achieved anything, even when I would work hard and I did achieve something like an award or something. And so I thought by going on this healing journey that it was going to fix all that stuff, that suddenly people were going to like me. Suddenly I was going to feel successful. Suddenly these things would just start aligning in my life and I'd feel good, that the healing would just fix everything around me. Well, that's not what happened. As I started really diving into my healing, I went to several therapists in the beginning, from 16 even through 2022. And I was on a mission to find somebody that truly could help me. And this is going to be the first advice I give you. Don't settle for working with a healer that has not first gone on their own healing journey, but also someone that's not dedicated to see you being empowered in your own self. And I fully believe almost every single person that goes into the healing field really, truly wants to make an impact and help people. But if they have not taken their own journey, then they're not as likely to be able to support you with yours. And I say that from a place where I've been in both. When I was not working on my own healing and I was not trying to help people or trying to help myself, I couldn't help those I was working with as much as I wanted to, as much as the education that I had in my brain was trying to help and do the right thing. I was just putting Band-Aids on people's wounds and sending them off and thinking, okay, they're okay. And then they would return with the same issue or problem. And I was unsure why. And then you start to make all these excuses for yourself or for others. And here's what I really learned as I started to go through this journey. After 2016 and my awakening, I suddenly felt this urge to start working on my own self, going inward as deep as I could and allowing myself to see myself in a way that I had never seen myself. Like looking in the mirror and not looking away, looking and seeing where I was not purposely not seeing my own flaws, my own thinking, my own ideas about the world around me. And the more I did that, the more painful it did become, because I started to see things about myself I didn't like. When I started to do that, I also started to realize that some of the things I went through in my life were not that great. I think we often can put rose-colored glasses on and make excuses for things that we've been through. And it doesn't mean that we're going to blame people for the way we are now. In some way, it is part of the trauma that we went through. And so, yeah, we can blame people. However, we are the ones responsible for healing ourselves. And so as I started to unfold myself and look at myself and stop ignoring my own flaws, I started to recognize that the things that I went through in my childhood were trauma, and that I did have pain in my body, and that I did have anxiety, and that I did not like myself. And the more I started to allow myself to see these things, the more memories popped back out. And I started remembering the abuse I went through, when prior I had completely disassociated and pushed that aside. And it wasn't even a part of my awareness that I had gone through any kind of abuse, whether that physically, mentally, sexually, or any kind of a neglect or anything like that. I really had no idea until I started to really look at myself. It was at that point that I decided I am ready and I will do anything possible to overcome these things. And that's when I started to meditate every single day. When I started to meditate, it was very difficult. I had a hard time just sitting for 2 minutes. Sometimes 30 seconds felt like 10 minutes. And so I had to force myself, because I was so determined to heal, that I was going to do it even though it felt uncomfortable. So every single morning I would get up super early before I had to go to work, around 5:30, so that I would have enough time just to sit in meditation. And I would get up, and I couldn't do it without being distracted. So I would use headphones. I would turn on, I found a meditation app on my phone, and I would turn on meditations, like guided meditations or meditation music. And at first I could barely make it 2 minutes. And so I started doing that more and more and more. Before I knew it, I was up to 5, I was up to 10, I was up to 15. And it became almost like this, the best time of my day. I was addicted to it. I loved being able to be sitting in my own energy in silence and calming my mind and body. And I did start to notice a difference in how I was showing up in the world. I noticed that I felt calmer. I noticed that I felt as if I could tackle the day a little bit better. And as I kept doing that, I started to hear myself more. I started to hear my intuition. I started to feel and sense things. And that's when I started taking the journey into understanding our energy and how our energy works with our bodies. And so I started paying attention to my energy and how I was showing up in places. Then I started working on clearing my chakras. I still remember the first time I ever went through a course to clear my chakras, which, if this is something you're interested in, I have a 7-week course I offer both in a group and individually, where I teach this, how to clear out your chakras, how to understand what is in your chakras, because this is what really started me on my really deep healing journey. And I believe that work is probably what transformed a lot of my energy into what it is today. But I remember sitting in a meditation and doing the work and working with my root chakra in particular, which holds our frequency of safety in it. And I began to just cry like I'd never cried before. The emotions that were coming out of me were something I'd never truly allowed myself to experience. And I was so surprised at the deep grief I had coming out of me and the pain I felt that was coming out of my tears, that I was shocked. And I contacted the teacher at the time. I was working with her, the healer. And I said, I don't know what just happened to me, but all I was doing was meditating with my root chakra, and all this stuff started coming out. And she said, that's because that's what is in your energy. That is what you feel all the time. And you just don't know it because you haven't sat and acknowledged that feeling. So being able to sit in your pain is the number one thing that is going to truly transform your life. And it does not feel good. And the reason that a lot of people, when they start this journey and they start to really try to heal, feel like they're going backwards, or there's things that are getting worse, or they feel like they're taking a bunch of steps forward and then they're going backwards, is because this is not a linear journey. This is a journey of ebb and flows. This is up and down. If you have held this trauma in your body all your life, and like me, when I started the journey, I was still in my 30s. Now I'm in my mid 40s, but that has been there for a long time. And it's gonna feel bad to start seeing it and feeling it and releasing it. Your body is so amazing and powerful that it tells you what you have stored in it by giving you pain, by giving you triggers. And half the time, the triggers are ignored because we don't like to feel those triggers. And this is something I also realized when I was working in the mental health field and I was really coming into my healing and waking up. Each time I was using the skills that I was taught to use to teach my clients how to deal with a trigger, or how to, if they feel one way, replace that behavior with a different way. I started realizing this is not working. It doesn't help us to release the pain and the trauma when we just replace one activity for another. If I'm feeling anxious and then I go for a run, yeah, that's wonderful. That's great. That is an amazing coping skill. But that's not getting rid of the pain, because you're not facing the pain. So the number one thing you have to do when you start to heal your trauma, when you start to release it, when you get it out of your body, is you have to feel every emotion that comes up. And this is not easy. And the more you feel, the more it comes. And it's going to feel like you can't ever stop crying. And it's going to feel like you're exhausted. And it's going to feel like you can't get off the couch someday. And it's going to feel like, why does it have to be so hard? That's because all that has always been there. It has always been that hard. You're just now turning to look at it and acknowledge that feeling that has always been there, that you've ignored and tried to push aside and move through. The hardness isn't new. It's just acknowledging that it's been there. And so the more you do this, the more it releases. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and we were talking about healing and darkness and light. And this is something I teach a lot to my clients about, the energy of darkness that we have in our body. Darkness doesn't just go away. Darkness is not really an enemy either. Darkness is part of what helps us to evolve. It causes us to want to change. It causes us to want to enhance our life, or in that uncomfortable feeling, make movement towards something different. If we didn't have the pain, we wouldn't grow. We wouldn't want to grow because we would just be fine where we are. But our soul purposely comes to earth to experience pain, because when we're in our true highest self and our soul self, there's nothing to grow from. We just are simply bliss and love and joy and all the positive emotions that we can have times 1,000, times 10,000, even more. And so our soul has this understanding of how it can have this wisdom and knowledge within it to grow and become more in its frequency. But it also understands that there's a difference between reading a book about something, about enhancing your life and growing and changing and doing something amazing, and actually engaging in the behavior to do it. One of the examples that my spirit guides gave me one time was, you can sit and read a book about how amazing going for a walk is for your body. And you could read the whole book and just feel inspired and like, oh my goodness, walking is so good for your body. And you will have all that knowledge in your mind. But until you go and take the walk, you will not grow and learn, and you will not embody that. So our soul purposely allows itself to come into the human experience, to experience the pain of being a human in many ways, but also the bliss and love and the fun things, so it can grow. And so as we're human and as we're awakening, our purpose is to not ignore the pain, but to lean into it and befriend that darkness with it, love it, send light to it, thank it for being there to help us learn and grow. And then when we see that darkness, when we send love and light to that darkness, we don't send hate and shame and anger towards it. In the energy of love and energy of light, it transforms. Darkness does not reflect into the world. You cannot reflect darkness into anything, but you can reflect light into all things. So if you think about how darkness doesn't reflect, it just is. It's just there. It's stagnant. It's heavy. It feels like just you can't move through it because you can't see through it. But when you start to send love and light into that darkness, into that heaviness, it starts to expand and open, which allows all that frequency and all that pain to begin to move out of your body and out of your mind and out of your awareness. And you're able to start to feel lighter. And in the lightness, you start to see yourself different. You start to love yourself more. You start to see things around you differently. You start to awaken even more into your higher consciousness. You raise in your frequency. But it takes this work of going in and feeling the pain and acknowledging what happened in your life, What mistakes have I made? What have I felt about myself? I know for myself, one of the biggest obstacles that I still work on today is shame. And I took the shame on because I believed many of the traumas I went through were my fault. And even if they were not my fault, and even if that was just a false identity that I brought on, I know that by loving that part of me, loving the shame, loving the little girl in me that was hurt and felt belittled and lost and unseen and unheard and all those things, by loving that little girl inside of me, I can help her heal, which then helps me to feel better and to heal. So you, as this wise adult person, as my own healer would say to me, helping that little part of you to heal and acknowledging the pain they experienced is exactly how you are going to come into your highest self. It's exactly how you're going to find your authentic alignment. You're going to find your gifts. You're going to find your empowerment. You're going to find your voice. You're going to find your joy. You're going to find your peace. And you're going to be able to live that out without fear. And you're not going to compromise yourself or your boundaries or the things that you desire in your life, because you know that it's okay to love yourself first and to allow that love and light to shine out into a very hard world. There is so much more light in this world than there is darkness, but you cannot see it when you're walking around in dark. And that is why it feels so painful when you first start this healing, is because you start to see that part of it even more. But you have to see things in order to release them. My spirit guides are reminding me right now that they gave me an analogy one time that it's much like when you have been brushing your teeth or washing your face in front of your bathroom mirror, and for weeks or a month, you haven't cleaned that mirror off. And before you know it, you're looking through little splats of toothpaste or whatever, or water stains, whatever got on that mirror. And it becomes blurry and more blurry and more blurry, trying to look at your reflection in that mirror. And it's that is because you haven't seen those things that have been building up over time on the mirror until it gets to a point where it's impeding your view. It's causing you not to see a clear reflection. And that's what happens in our lives. Until we clear that mirror off, until we see all the debris and the spots that have been put on it just by daily activities, daily life, daily interactions, we don't see a clear reflection of who we are. And that's what we're doing on our healing journey, is we're looking at those little spots. Even if they seem insignificant in the beginning, even if they seem like they're not a big deal, they are. Those every day we face something. And this is why this is a daily journey. This is why it takes daily work to go on this journey. And in the beginning, it's not easy. And in many ways, sometimes it doesn't get easier, but it does, because you start to feel lighter and you recognize those spots before they become more and more and more, and you clear them out before you start to see that old reflection, or you start to look through that darkness again. So for those of you that are seeking how to actually heal, how to actually let the trauma out of your body, this is how you do it. You have to acknowledge all of that stuff that you have in there, and you have to sit in it, and you have to feel it, and you have to allow yourself to express it outwardly through your words. We have a voice for a reason. And when we repress this voice, when we repress our body's emotions, when we push it back down, it's like a pressure cooker waiting to explode. So we've got to take the lid off of that and start allowing all that to resurface and all of it to come out. And then eventually it starts to feel lighter and lighter and lighter. And then you feel as if you have become a completely different person. But the reality of it is, you became who you really are without all the debris in your reflection looking back at you. I hope this was helpful for you. Again, feel free to reach out to me if you would like to explore working with me one-on-one. I will let you know if I have any courses coming up. I'm currently working on one right now with a group. So when I'm done with that, I will consider to do another one. But again, reach out. And if you have any other questions or anything that you would like me to address in any of my videos, please share that as well. I'm always happy to interact with you. And as you are me and I am you, we are in this together. So I wish you all the best day, night, evening, whatever time it is for you. I send you all the universal love. Namaste.